What's that?
Sit here, sit there.
No, that's fine. I got this.
That's all it is.
That's all that matters. We have 5. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Escambia County Tourist Development Council Budget Workshop. This is not a TDC meeting, but a workshop. So I guess before we really call it to order, Danielle, was the meeting properly advertised?
Yes, in the Sun Press on May 16th.
Thank you. Will you please call the roll?
Jeff Bogosh,
Here?
James Reeves, Mary Hoxing, Shirley Conley, David Baer,
Yes.
Ronald Rivera,
Yes.
Matish Patel,
Yes.
Tanyade Broughton, and Casey Jones.
Great. And Mary is here participating via Teams, but we do have a quorum present, and she can participate electronically on votes. Thank you. So we do have a quorum, so the meeting is called to order. It is 3:04 p.m. on Tuesday, May the 21st. First on the agenda is public forum. Some people just walked in. Is there anyone here from the general public that would like to speak? You're welcome to come to the podium and speak before we start talking budget. Yep, please introduce yourself, and when you, after you speak, when you get with Danielle to fill out a speaker form, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I don't have my glasses, so. My name is Kerry Freeland. I'm the proprietor of Dive Pros, a 35-year-old Florida corporation doing business in Escambia County. I serve on the Escambia County Marine Advisory Committee. The committee recently sent a list of items that are priorities to enhance our marine environment. One of these hot topics will greatly enhance the viability of Escambia County as a diving tourism destination. The acquisition of a large vessel to serve as an artificial reef for scuba diving and recreational fishing. Those that work in the recreational diving industry saw a surge in business when we acquired the USS Oriskany. In the first year after her sinking, the USS Oriskany generated $2 million in revenue and created 36 jobs. People have been and are coming to the area to dive this wreck literally from all over the world. The USS Oriskany is aging. We are not far from the 20th anniversary of her sinking. What we need is a complementary wreck for an artificial reef. Studies have shown that a second reef of this nature would bring in larger numbers of tourists. Right now, we are basically a one-trick pony for many of the serious traveling divers. But our one-trick pony keeps ending up on the top 10 list of wrecks to dive in the world. We want to give the traveling diver another site to visit, write about, and to tell all their diving friends to come and visit here in Pensacola. The committee, the Escambia Marine Advisory Committee, has asked the Escambia County Marine Resources Division to identify, locate, and to procure a vessel of this nature to augment what resources we currently have. Marine Resources has identified 2 different vessels that would meet this criteria and is doing their due diligence to formulate a plan to bring this project to fruition. I ask that you consider the needs of Escambia County Marine Resources to bring us this new bucket list dive destination and greatly enhance the offerings of exciting dive sites to market to our diving tourism visitors. In just the last week, I have done business with people from Washington State, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, North Carolina, Texas, Louisiana, Central Florida, St. Augustine, and even the Florida Keys. Those folks are coming up here to enjoy our resources. These dive travelers are educated, love to explore our natural resources, realize the value of our natural resources, and spend money in our community. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Are there any other public comments? Anyone here from the public? Not? All right. Thank you. Next on the agenda is status of funds available. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. I am James Baker here on behalf of the Escambia County Budget Office to present you with the status of your TDT funds through April 2024. As always, I believe the clerk's office has provided you a copy of the breakdown of the expenditures. So the FY24 collections with interest through the end of April 2024 totaled $9,505,313, as compared to April of 2023, which totaled $9,392,496, which was a collection increase of roughly $112,817. The FY24 collections through April, which again totaled the $9,505,313, are roughly about 47.52% of your total TDT budget of $20 million. The expenses through April 2024 totaled $8.7 million, and your current TDT cash balance is $27.8 million.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Any questions or comments for James? No? Thank you. All right. So next on the agenda is the proposed TDT budget. In front of you, under your agenda, you have a packet that I've put together. It includes the first page. And Joe, if you could put this on the screen, please, the spreadsheet. Thank you. That page is, I don't know if anybody in the audience can even read it, but there's a few copies up here on the table. Is on the far left column is the current year adopted 2023-2024 budget. The center is, well, there's an error because I misunderstood what Stefan was saying about where he was budgeting for 24-25. And then what I was also proposing for 24-25 that I wanted to present today and discuss. And so behind that is the email that I received from Stefan. He has since given me an update to that email. That colored screen that you, block that you see, the update includes the Bay Center capital investment for year 2. Coming out of the 5th cent reserve funds. He just added it to the spreadsheet. It doesn't affect the actual annual allocation. It gets pulled out of reserve. So what it does is it's a fund transfer into this year's budget, and then it essentially goes back out to the Bay Center, or however that magic happens. And so I think Danielle emailed most everybody, if not everybody, copies of all of the applications. If anybody needs hard copies of those, they are here, right outside that door on a cart. And there's a couple of forests that have been chopped down and processed. but there are hard copies if anybody wants of every single one of the requests. They have all been entered on the spreadsheet, the amounts. So if you look at that section, BOCC/outside agency allocations, you can see the African American Heritage, 75,000, Naval Aviation, 100,000, et cetera. That whole section. Those are what are, have been sent out to you. The sale Pensacola, $315,000 that you see on there has been approved by us already. We were trying to approve it for this year. The promoter of that event asked to delay or to push it out until next fiscal year. And so the county commission already approved it in next year's budget. So that item, that $315,000, of all of these items, that one is already approved. Well, and the statutory holdback, because that's a statutory requirement. So, and then the other packet that you have, in the rest of the stuff that I put in front of you is the packet that went to the board meeting yesterday, the Board of County Commissioners yesterday, was the clerk's office's report on the update of collections for the month of March, received in the month of April. James just gave us even more updated information, I think, through April. That has not been reported yet by the clerk, because I'm not sure it's been reconciled, because they had until yesterday to remit those taxes. So anyway, those are the documents in front of you. I put this together just as a starting point and a conversation starter. The other item that is nowhere on this is that the Island Authority, every 10 years, does beach renourishment. They try to take care of that, and they allocate funds. And last time, 10 years ago, or however many years ago it was now, 8 years ago, 9, the county actually financed a portion of it, and so the Island Authority paid for it. We have, obviously, for the last couple of years, been putting $500,000 a year in our annual budget for beach renourishment. Originally, and I'd actually like Lee to come up and speak to it, but originally they got proposals. They thought the estimate was going to be around $20 million to do the renourishment, but now they're thinking it's going to be closer to $30 million. They have $8 million that they have, the Island Authority has, from the ratepayers out at the leaseholders out at the beach. We'll have, at the end of this year, I think $2 million already in reserves, and they're looking for $3 to $5 million more dollars to be able to get to that 50%, so they can get the state's match. The state will match it dollar for dollar to get to the total amount. So Lee, I'll turn it over to you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lee Davis, Executive Director of Santa Rosa Island Authority. The chairman's pretty much laid out all my data points for you, but no, that's fantastic. But I will reiterate a couple data points that I'm sure you're already familiar with, and then maybe talk about some that you might not be familiar with. Of course, I think everybody in this room can agree that Pensacola Beach is the huge economic driver for this community, and I don't think anyone in this room would argue that fact. In fact, we know that over the last 2 years, well, more than that, over the last 5 years, consistently Pensacola Beach is bringing in 43, upwards of 45% of the overall tourist development tax dollars. It's not to mention what they're collecting in local option sales tax and some of the other revenue sources. As the chairman mentioned, this is a project that occurs roughly every 10 years. And beach nourishment is critical because it provides erosion mitigation, protects infrastructure, enhances recreation, which is key for our tourists, obviously, maintains our ecology, boosts tourism, and enhances our climate resiliency, which is going to become just more and more important. The cost, as Mr. Baer mentioned, we are now just recently learning that it's going to be between $25 and $30 million instead of the $20 million that we had intended. And we're making great efforts in reaching that 50% split because, of course, the Island Authority has set aside, well, we currently have set aside $6 million. Another $2 million will go into our budget proposal for this year, which would put us at 8. And with the work of the council, you guys have put in a 2, so, or 2.5. So we were golden until we got the new projections on what it would cost. So at the end of the day, we're going to be about $5 million short. Beach Nourishment, the design and permitting for it will start in fiscal year '25. Some of the construction may actually start in fiscal year '25 at the very end, possibly September, around that time frame, and then cross over into fiscal year 2026. So essentially, we have 2 more budget cycles to get this money right and to meet our local match for that state money of $15 million. As Mr. Barrow stated, and you've seen in your packets, we did put in a request for $3 million in addition to the 2 and the commitment that the TDC had been making. We've also been talking, I've been talking with county staff as it relates to potentially restore money or LOST funds, or where are some other funds potentially available. So we are in dialogue and conversations about where other funding sources may be available. What I want to specifically say to this group, though, is that, SRIA's position is that not all of beach nourishment should fall on the backs of the commercial and residential leaseholders. In our opinion, Pensacola Beach is the largest public park that we have. And yes, the leaseholders do have a responsibility to contribute and significantly contribute to beach nourishment. But they're also sharing their daily space and their quality of life with lots of tourists and even our local residents who come down for the day to visit this amazing public park. So our position certainly is that we need to be finding other sources that collectively we can come together as a local community and meet that $15 million match that the state will need. Clearly, the TDC has already stepped up to the plate to the tune of $2 million, but we are short. So that's where we are, and where the SRA's position is on funding the project as a whole.
Hey, will you turn on your mic? We have a member on the Teams call, and they can't hear. Thank you, sir. Speak into the mic, please. I'm sorry, ask the question.
Do you need $3 million or do you need $5 million?
Ultimately, we will need $5 million. So we had put in the request for $3 million this year to the TDC, knowing that we would explore those other funding alternatives for the other 2. But ultimately, we need $5 million.
In addition to the 2.
In addition to the 2.
So $7 million total.
Yes.
So they need, for their portion for the share, 50%, they need $15 million, because it's going to be a $30 million job. They have will have reserved $8 million in Island Authority's own budget. We'll have $2 million accumulated through our $500,000 a year for 4 years to get to the 10, and then they will need another 5. I've talked with some county staff, and I've also talked with county attorney very briefly for a moment today about whether or not LOST is, if beach renourishment's an authorized use. She says she believes it is, but that was in passing, so we need to have further conversation. And also restore funding. There's approved programs, but not encumbered yet. And so I know there's a lot of moving around of those restore funds, but seems to be a very appropriate project to use those funds for. I know I'm thinking pot 1 is probably the easiest option. Pot 2 and pot 3 get a little more cumbersome with the consortium, et cetera. But anyway,
Now, let me ask you, does they need the $15 million right now? Or
So And I've talked to our coastal engineer, coastal consultant about that. No, we don't need it like for fiscal year '25, and that's why we think we actually have 2 bites at the apple, if you will. But with construction hopefully starting in early FY '26, meaning October 1st, November, December, or around that, we definitely need to have the 15 million in place for fiscal year '26.
What do you want to do?
I would like today to not have that part of this approved budget and find out, because it's not going to fit within the operational $20 million budget. The 500,000 does, but not the additional 3 million or 5 million, is to continue to work with county staff to find out if there's available funding to help offset that $5 million. I'd prefer the county pay that portion versus what they did last time to finance it. Because the next 10-year project after this one, if they don't have to finance it, they can be accumulating those funds and not have to get, because Restore may not exist at that point, and LOST may be fully committed. There may not be any other opportunity, but the Island Authority could accumulate money. If we continue to put aside $500,000 a year, that would be $5 million in another 10 years to help get them to that point. And so I wanted to have this conversation. I didn't put it on the spreadsheet that's up here. And I talked to Lee earlier today about this, just to let everybody know what the situation is and see if we can work through county staff and maybe get the county commission to commit those funds. Mm-hmm. We do have one county commissioner on this dice.
Well, local option sales tax, that'll be a discussion, no doubt, because those dollars go a lot of different directions. But I think if we don't need it all at once, I think it's certainly appropriate. I mean, obviously Pensacola Beach, Perdido Key, they generate a lot of those local option sales tax funds, and I think it's obviously needed. So, but I'm sure that'll be a discussion. Stefan, we haven't had another workshop on the lost fund in a while. I mean, last one we had was probably 2.5 years ago. How's that fund looking these days? It's not in the red, because before what it was is all the near, this year and the next year were in the red. Everything was pushed to the out years because everyone wanted their projects done. Right. And so, I think we need to probably bring that into part of the discussion, because there's a lot of capital projects all around the county that we're counting on those funds for. Yeah. So,
yeah. I believe originally when the referendum passed, it was anticipated to collect about 40 to 45 million.
It's doing way better than that.
But
now.
It's doing about 100 million.
Yeah, but we don't get that though. How much? Yeah.
Portion of it goes to the city, but
absolutely,
the lion's share goes to the county.
So how's that fund looking, Stefan?
So what I would say is we're definitely not in the red to the point that we were. So as you know, we have our board approved plan, and we amend our plan as certain things or initiatives come up. But what I would say is there's certainly some additional capacity there due to the growth since we initiated the plan versus how that revenue is generating above and beyond where the plan started. So certainly there is some additional capacity and discretion that the board may have. Yes.
Yeah, and I think once we have a District 4 commissioner too, it'll be even an easier sell. I mean, without the District 4 guy there, or gal, whoever it'll be. But yeah, I think that's a reasonable discussion to have, in my opinion.
If we're having this much trouble getting this 15 million, where are we going to get the other 15 million?
That's the state. The state matches
So
it.
they're going to match.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The state has, you want to talk about that program?
Yeah, the state does have a program, and I appreciate kind of that segue. So the state does have a beach management program through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Our understanding is that this year the state budget had $50 million in it for all of those projects across the state. They also had some carryover funds, so we were very confident that our beach project to start in FY '25 would be funded by the state. that 50%, the 15 million, and then we would match it, the other 15 million.
Any other questions or comments for Lee about beach renourishment? No. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I mean, you've got this proposal in front of you, and there's no magic to it. The amount under the outside agency allocation is what has been requested. Stefan has told me that the county is anticipating a collection of $20,500,000 for next year. This past year, we collected about 21.5 million, I think, is what was in one of these packets. And we're actually doing better than previous year to date. We have our big months coming up. Hopefully, we'll continue that trend. But so he's budgeting an additional $500,000 in collection over the current fiscal year, where we budgeted 20 million. Just going down that spreadsheet, you can see the statutory holdback is 5%. So that's $1,025,000. And then the 5th cent is being reserved. So the 5th cent obviously is going to be $4,100,000, but take out the statutory holdback, and that's $3,825,000 that is being reserved. And that leaves available for programmatic funding $15,650,000. Back to that, the point about Stefan giving me the updated numbers, the Bay Center year 2 funding is just sort of a pass-through of fund transfer and then transferring out. So I didn't put it in here. So we can just talk about what's the actual annual allocations. And you can see there's the Bay Center operations, the beach mowing, the marine resources, county admin costs, beach renourishment, and then those outside agencies in the unified budget. So I will open this up for discussion to the council members, whoever would like to go.
Could I speak?
Yes, please.
I know there's a lot of requests that we got sent, and I'm also the chair of the grant committee at Visit Pensacola, and we've had some of these actually come to us in the past, and then they used up the 5 years that they were coming to us, and now they're coming here. My only concern is that a lot of these events or just organizations are asking for funds, and then if our sole purpose of this council is tourist development, I think our council has to maybe take a closer look at, are we doing what we are on this council for? And that's tourist development. To me, there's some organizations here that ask for funds or then ask for increase of funds and then use those funds to add an additional day of something to their event, and it's not driving heads and beds. And to me, that's a concern, because you're taking money out of a pot and you're not bringing money back into that pot. And at some point in time, we're going to keep using those funds up. And all that does is it hurts the marketing agencies that can bring events to Pensacola or can bring tourists to Pensacola. And it's not just, I know I'm the hotelier up here talking, but it's not just for hotels, it's for every other business that's affected by tourists that come to Pensacola. It's all the restaurants, and it's all the employees, and it's all the Uber drivers, and it's all the shopping centers, and it's thousands of businesses that get affected. The more people we bring to Pensacola, the better everybody's business does. And I think, to me, when I look at this list, there's there's several on here that just, they're great for local events, and it's great to say, hey, this is a great event for locals to enjoy, but it's really not driving heads and beds. And I think if we don't put a closer eye on these things, it's just going to keep getting worse. And I feel like the amounts just seem to keep getting higher and higher. I know we think that the collections are going to be higher, but honestly, as a hotel owner, I see the opposite. Every single one of our properties, the ADR is down and the occupancy is down. And our next 3 months outlook, they're all down. So it would be great if we collect more than we think we are, but from my perspective, I don't think we are. And I'm not the only hotelier that's going to tell you that. So I think we have to do a better job as this Tourist Development Council to put a closer eye on all the funds that every organization asks for, and we should be demanding a certain rate of return on dollars that get spent. If they're going to ask for $100,000 or $250,000, and that's only going to create 500 room nights, to me, that's very expensive room nights. I can give you 5 times as many for less. So I think as our council, we have to do a much better job at the folks that are getting funds. Is that just padding their bottom line, or how many actual visitors are they bringing into our area? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, real quick.
Yes, sir.
The Pelican drop, $50,000, that didn't go out, right? Because we didn't have one. So-
Correct.
Yeah, okay, just make sure.
Correct.
Those
We
ones over
approved it.
there, that was just carryover. They came
Correct.
back. Okay,
Yeah, so that left is this current year that we're in.
right,
But that one was not,
okay.
we approved it at our budget meeting, but
Correct.
it never happened.
Yeah, it never happened. Same with the other ones that kind of looked that same way, Chappie James, that kind of stuff. Did Chappie James go out?
Yes, I believe so. Stefan, did the Chappie James Museum, not the memorial, but the actual
That's right.
museum,
Okay,
that funding went out. It
Okay.
was paid, the 50,000 was paid.
okay. Thank you, Steph. Are we going to take these one at a time? Y'all want to go through them from top to bottom, or how?
Well, I want to, unless does somebody else have anything to say?
Well,
I just wanted to respond to
Yeah.
Tish's comment,
Oh, okay.
just really fast. I agree with you about the need, our role in helping to diversify and grow, develop tourism. And as I look at the report that was presented to the county commission last night, or yesterday morning, whenever the meeting was, and look at the collections year over year in different months, you can see where the weakness is in collections, right? We have a couple of months a bunch of months now that are over $1 million, but we have some that are still under $1 million in collections. This February this year, we were $753,000 in collections. November, we were over 1.5 million, where, looking back to 2015, November was 411,000. So the fall, we've done a good job of trying to add programs that we've been supporting through Fufu Fest and some of the sports programs and other things. We've done a great job of increasing that fall schedule of events. And now we're supporting some things in the spring with Mardi Gras, Pensacola, to help try to grow those. Because if you look at those months, February is a low month. March is under $1 million. Last year it was $1 million. This year it was a little under. But January, February generally is when Mardi Gras happens. And so we're making investments to try to help improve those periods of time. Because, during the summer, our hotels and restaurants are hitting some capacity levels. But there's tons of vacancy, during these other off times. And so how do we grow those, utilize the infrastructure that's already there, and help add more room nights during those periods? And so I think it's important for us to look at the different types of events and things that are, when people present to us, that are happening during those times, and go, hey, will it help move the needle when we need the needle moved? When we're at capacity, if somebody brought us, hey, I've got this great event that's going to happen between July, the July 4th weekend and the Blue Angels weekend, do we need it? I mean, we've got more people in this town than traffic, than a bridge can handle. So I think, I agree with you. I just think we need to be looking at kind of diversifying the type of tourists. We love our beach tourists and we want more beach tourists, but we don't want only beach tourists, right? We want some arts and culture, we want some sports, historic preservation, all, different environmental, and outdoor lifestyle stuff. So looking at those and trying to figure out dates of when events can come and help, I think that's the kind of stuff we're talking about, whether it's, scuba diving. I mean, is a perfect example. People that scuba dive are wearing wetsuits and dry suits or whatever they're wearing to stay warm when they go down, so they can come in the winter. We're not frozen. So anyway, I think that's what we need to be looking at, and I agree with you about that. So that was all I had to say. Thank you.
Just a couple things, Mr. Chairman. I would like to see the Pelican drop added back in. I know we didn't do it this past year. I'm still a big advocate for it, and I mean, I think we need to do it. I mean, otherwise people are just going out of town to do things and spending money other places. When we had that Pelican drop here before, I know there were some issues with the committee that was behind it, but a lot of people came to Pensacola and a lot of them stayed. And when we didn't have stuff, I mean, I myself, I went to Mobile for the moon pie drop and got a hotel and spent money there. So I think we should at least put a placeholder, unless the mayor has said he does not want to do it.
I don't think the mayor has said he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I think nobody wanted to step up and take on the responsibility of
Is that
putting
really
on
what
the
it came
event.
down to?
Yeah.
No one wanted to do
I
it?
mean, I think
I'm
we
willing
had
to
had the
serve on a committee.
conversation
I mean, I'll
about,
serve on a committee if we
Yeah.
get it off the ground. I mean, I would do that. And I would be willing to put a placeholder there too.
I would think the Downtown Improvement Board, Walker Wilson and the folks would, I mean, it's going to be a windfall. It would be a great event for Pensacola.
right, we can't dictate that they do it.
No,
They could.
but if we have some funding there, I mean, I'd rather put it there and at least have it sitting there.
I think they've been trying to get out of the events business. That's why they got rid of Gallery Night.
Yeah. But DIB picked it up.
No, DIB was
Oh, are
doing
they getting rid of
They
it?
got out of the business, and now there's a separate.
Well, let's get them to do it.
Right.
Let's
I
get
mean,
someone to do
I
it.
think last year we talked about Mardi Gras Pensacola possibly doing it.
Danny said no.
Danny said no. Hannah may
Thanks,
want to
Danny.
do it. Hannah's probably
quick
capable
answer.
of doing it, where Danny is not.
Yeah, that's a quick answer. Right
So we could probably get Hannah to agree. to
Yeah,
it.
this might be a great opportunity for the chamber to come together. I see Todd sitting back there right now, and he
They're
does
taking
some,
over the
yeah, he does some
4th of July.
fireworks. Yeah, they do fireworks. They could do a Pelican drop. I mean, I have faith in Todd. Todd's my friend.
I don't know, it's just a shame. But
I
anyway,
agree.
Well-
my 2 cents worth. And then the only other thing I would say is Perdido Key, we're in District 1, we're completing a multi-use path. It's going to be a county facility to maintain, and I would like to see some dollars be spent out there as well. I see we've got $125,000, which I support. I go out to the beach all the time, Pensacola Beach. I have a condo there. I love it. But I also go out to Perdido Key a lot, and we just, and I appreciate this board's approval of, $3,500 to finally fix those signs that were falling apart. I'd like to see some more dollars spent on Perdido Key, and I'd like to have that added to that line item so that when we have legitimate tourist-related beautification projects at Perdido Key, that we can do those as well, and I can bring those forward. I think it's reasonable. They generate, 25, 26, 28%, and they don't get a whole lot back. That's what I've been told by my constituents.
17.5% this year, so far. Last year, 21.1. But,
20, so 20%.
yes, 20%. So what do you?
I think
what
we
do you
just,
propose?
well, where we have the earmark for the beach mowing and Bob Sykes, I mean, maybe add Perdido Key. That way I can tap into those funds too,
The
as
100.
necessary and as appropriate.
Evan? I saw him moving, so he has a comment. You might as well take a closer seat.
Yes.
So, I know, right? So, Commissioner, if this helps you and the council, so what I would say, we can always bring a Perdido Key item to the board at any time. The board does have a certain amount of just built-in reserves. It's actually in the TDC reserve policy. So at any time, Commissioner, which is what we did for your request here this last time, we just moved some out of the board's reserve. So when you've identified a need or an item, we can always bring it back to the council, get that addressed, and get that thing funded for you at whatever time you've made a
Well,
determination.
since we're doing the budget though, I'd like a line item. I think that's
So is
reasonable.
this a recurring or a one-time?
I mean, I don't know. But I think there's wayfaring signs out there that are looking dilapidated. Again, the multi-use path, a lot of tourists are going to be out there enjoying it, and they're out there already, staying in the condos, Airbnbs, funding the TDT, funding the taxes and enjoying that. So that's going to need to be maintained. We don't have a standalone, Perdido Key contingent of public works as the beach does, and we don't have the second layer like the SRAA. So, I think now would be an appropriate time to just maybe add a line item for Perdido Key, beautification.
Beautification.
How-
I thought
how-
you were talking about beach renourishment.
Maybe 50 grand.
Okay.
50K as a placeholder. Doesn't mean we're going to spend it all. Like, for instance, the thing I brought last time, 3,500, and that really goes a long way out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would. No, I won't, Mr. Reeves. 50.
What is? 2750.
All right, 40.
That's the final offer.
No, I just think it's a reasonable request. They do chip in. Thank you. I appreciate that, guys.
Anyone disagree? No? All right. So we'll move that line item to 175. Which,
Will you add that Perdido to it as well?
yes.
Okay, thank you. That's perfect. I appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
David, are we adding 175, or are you making a separate one just for Perdido for 50?
What would you prefer, Stefan? Would you like us to do a separate line item for Perdido? So that's the beach mowing. That's the contract for the 125.
I think they deserve their own line.
Rather than making it 175 to include Perdido, just do a separate line item for Perdido at 50,000?
Yeah.
If it helps the council, you can do it as a separate line item. As far as the budget, I can,
It's gonna be rolled up.
I can add it. It's probably still going to be in the same penny. It doesn't matter. It's whatever works best for council.
Okay.
We can call it the Bagash slush fund.
I don't need extra pressure. Now, how about, but if we did a separate line, that way, it would be differentiated from Pensacola Beach, just Perdido Key beautification,
Okay.
something like that, 50 grand. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
And by the way, now that we're talking about Perdido Key, I'm very proud of the fact that in just a couple of days, 2 days from now, for the first time in history, we will have lifeguards at Perdido Key. That's a big deal. We had multiple drownings last year. Never had lifeguards out there in the public beach access points before, so very proud about that. And I think the tourists will appreciate that too.
You should be proud. You worked hard to get that beach open.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for all the work you've done out there, cleaning that place up. All right. Okay, so let's, for time, outside agencies allocation. Tish, you mentioned some of these organizations that are requesting funds have been through, you're concerned about those. Are there any specifically in this proposed budget that anyone, I don't want to put you on the spot, but anyone has an issue with that you want to discuss? And then we can discuss unified budget.
I think my biggest concern is for any of these that are requesting funds is, it's one, to have funds to throw the event, and then how much of those funds are they actually using to market Pensacola? Like how much, if they increase from 100,000 to 200,000 to 250,000, how much of that increase that they've asked for is actually driving marketing versus just for their personal event, or to pay their themselves or pay staff, or how much of it is actually going towards the actual marketing? I will say, like the very first one, African American Heritage, 75,000. I think they went from 60 to 75, and I think the portion of theirs when I remember going through the packet, 60% of that was for salaries. So I'm kind of curious to know what the 40% is doing. And something else I noticed with theirs, they had $3,100 in merchant fees. So if I know a little bit about merchant fees, so they're charging $90,000 in credit cards to somebody, but so what are they charging for? And I didn't see that anywhere on their information, any financials that shows they're charging $90,000 for what, and why is that not on the financials anywhere? And then, I mean, in any one of them, I don't know, like with the fireworks, I will say like the fireworks that we had downtown, 4th of July this past year, I feel like they got the funding, but it's, why are we not doing more to maybe generate some revenue or to help pay some of the expense by having, you know, food trucks or something else out there? I think there was like, maybe, I think there was one or two, and the lines were bonkers, you know, it was just crazy. And to me, one, it makes the event better if there's 25 food trucks and you don't have to stand in line for an hour for a hot dog or whatever they're selling. And two, it would put, you know, it would cost less because they would have to come to us for less money because they would have charged the food trucks to be out there or whatnot. So I think that goes for any one of these events. Like Mardi Gras, Pensacola, I know they had increased their ask last year. That's one of them that was coming to grant, Visit Pensacola Grant Committee. We were not giving the full, they were asking for 50,000. I can't remember a year where they got the full amount of 50,000, and then it jumped from 50 to 250. And I get it, it's February, but to me, I felt like we gave them the 250, and then that added Flow Rider a day before the event, and I remember getting a bunch of emails, and, you know, like, hey, you got free tickets, and, you know, so I think it was more like, you know, I don't know how much Flow Rider costs, but I would have much rather a big chunk of that money go out to marketing, you know, 100, 200, 300 miles from here, and people say, hey, we didn't know Pensacola had a Mardi Gras. You know, I got family that lives in Atlanta, and they didn't know. They knew that Mobile had a Mardi Gras, and they were talking about going down to Mobile, and I was like, where are you going to Mobile for? We got one in Pensacola, and like, since when? And I was like, we've had one here for a while. They're like, we never do that. You know, for them to live right in Atlanta and not know that, to me, that's a problem. And to me, I don't see anybody jumping in an airplane to go see Flow Rider at the concert. And from what I heard, it wasn't that busy, the Flow Rider concert. So to me, I think the use of the dollars, giving the dollars is one thing, but using those dollars to properly market the area and the event to make sure we see the drive that we should see is my concern. I see the dollars are there, and we want to spend dollars. We don't want to just keep dollars in the bank account not being utilized, especially shoulder season events. So that's my biggest concern is if we're the Tourist Development Council, we should say, hey, you're getting $250,000. Okay, how much of that was towards marketing, and how much more can you do this year to drive tourists to Pensacola during your event? Sorry for being so long on that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I will go ahead and tell everybody, my son is graduating at 5 o'clock, so I have to leave in time, creative learning, from middle school, not from college. From Pennsylvania. I have to get
That's
to
a big
Pennsylvania by 5.
That's a big step.
So
Real quick,
I will have to
Mr.
get out.
Chairman, and I am not an apologist for Mardi Gras, although I do enjoy it quite a bit. And I do think I think it's a relevant community event that should be funded, and I think it does put heads in beds, even if they're local residents. I think it puts heads in beds. I will say I think we can do better in Flow Rider next year. We'll all talk about that. I think, I don't know that Flow Rider hit the mark with Escambia County. I agree with you, but I don't know that we should throw the baby out with bathwater on this. I do not believe that.
Thank you, sir.
In view of the graduation, could we move that we approve all the items under Board of County Commissioners, outside agencies, allocations?
So we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Reeves, a second from Mr. Rivera.
Now, I want to say, if somebody wants to pull something out to talk about that,
Right. Second for discussion. How about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. And by the way, we don't approve anything today. We're going to sort of take straw votes because this is a workshop, and we'll bring it to our June meeting to approve whatever we move forward today.
I thought you were trying to get out of here.
I am, but I'm just letting you know what we can do today. We don't have an attorney present. You are an attorney. You're the only attorney here, Mr. Reeves.
Jim, I guess the question I would ask is if are you approving it as it's written, or are we willing to put the Pelican drop back in hopes that someone will do it? I mean, it'll never happen if it's not funded. I think the community would benefit from it.
I say we hold this budget up until somebody in that audience takes a hold of it.
I mean, really, does the
Danny,
does the
Todd.
county have to do that?
Let me
too?
know how
Nobody
it
gets
goes.
any money
Danny, Todd.
until
We do the
somebody
bus
takes
service, now we got to do the
Pelican.
Pelican drop too.
Just get Danny and Todd together to do it.
So,
Come
Mary.
on, Danny, come on, man.
Hey,
Do the
Mary-
Pelican drop. Extra
Hey,
50
Mary
grand.
Hoxing is on the line, was trying to talk. Mary?
Yeah, I think that we need to amend the motion to include adding in the $50,000 for a Pelican drop.
Yeah.
Mr. Reeves, are you interested in amending your motion?
Absolutely, I'm just trying to get.
I'll
you
amend
to
that second.
graduation.
Was it for Danny to get it or was it for Todd? I don't remember. I didn't hear it.
No, that was me just asking him to do it.
Just allocating the funds
Okay.
Yeah, for whomever. but-
to try to find a
Well, I
present.
guess it's Danny because Todd just went to the bathroom. He said, I'm out.
I don't think the 50,000 is so much a big issue. It's fixing the Pelican that's the issue, is the way I understood it. Am I correct?
To be honest with you, it does take security. It takes PPD to do that. I mean,
Right.
that's a lot of
Yeah, it's a
money.
lot
It
of
really, truly is a lot. It's a huge lift to do it in downtown Pensacola for New Year's Eve, but again, there are people here in this room that are capable.
I'm happy for the amendment.
Mr. Rivera, do you second the amendment?
I do second the amendment. As long as we do have that placeholder, hopefully somebody will take this on.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
Maybe the Sheriff's Foundation could do it, Ronnie.
That sounds awesome.
We could do it in the county.
they could
We could do
police it?
something in the county. I can assure you that something could be done in the county today. I don't have to call anybody. I can tell you, there are people that have talked about this seriously to do
Yeah.
something in the county.
But not in the city, though, huh?
Well, no, we're
Yeah.
county, we're the county
City's
sheriff, not the
within
city sheriff.
right?
Hopefully someone will watch this and pick up the
Cooperation.
baton, I hope.
So any discussion? No? Any, okay, so by a show of hands, who approves the amended outside agency allocations? Mary, I can't see your hand, but do you agree?
I do.
Okay. Tish, I didn't see you behind. No, okay.
Okay, what do you want to do
Okay.
about, I was going to make the same motion for the unified budget, but did you have some issue you had with the unified?
So the only thing that I will mention about the unified budget's request, they've actually requested more than what I have on this sheet. They have requested, I'm looking for it, $14,392,920. It's on Stefan's, that second page on Stefan's sheet. Darren, you want to come up and speak, please, sir? What I put on this proposed sheet was taking last year's $13 million allocation and bumping it up the same percent that the collections, from 20 million to 20,500,000, it was 2.5% increase. And so I increased that allocation by 2.5%. So Darren, you want to talk
Sure.
about your request?
So our request this year is the same amount that we actually received this fiscal year. It is the initial appropriation plus the supplemental, which ended up to being that amount, the $392,920. I will say this, that getting the supplemental money was critical, and moving additional traffic and bookings this spring. We've seen the numbers jump because of the supplemental, but because of the supplemental process, when we like to start investing in, at least in February, it gets pushed back until late March into April. So that was our thinking behind asking for the original amount plus the supplemental we received this year. Really aren't asking for any more dollars than what we received this year to do our marketing. I will say we have, to Mitesh's point, we have additional inventory into the market, both in vacation rentals and traditional lodging. We're seeing anywhere from 4 to 6% increase in our inventory, but we also have additional properties coming online. So we have more hotel rooms to fill. Of course, we're focusing on our shoulder seasons versus the summer in order to do that. And when we look at the reports, you'll see that there are 3 geographic areas that are doing better than last year. Downtown, Pensacola Beach, and Perdido Key are all up over last year, but we also have some areas that are double-digit decreases compared to last year. So the impact isn't necessarily evenly spread throughout the county. And to go from where we are at this year to drop that dollar amount out, that means we wouldn't have those same dollars that we're able to invest this spring. Now, again, supplemental is always something that happens after the fact. So there could be supplemental dollars. We're not sure if there'll be supplemental dollars, but that was the reason behind our request.
But the way you got it is you got an increase over last year's budget based on the percentage of collections.
Correct. That is how I
So
presented it.
So that they can still have a supplemental this year.
They
Right.
could.
Yeah.
What Darren was saying is the supplemental is from last year's overage or supplemental income didn't pay out. They couldn't get it until around April, which put them a couple of months behind of trying to get some marketing started. So he was trying to do it now versus waiting until then to get it this next year.
Do you want 13 million or you want 14 million? You want the number that's on the,
I believe we're going to have the funding available next year, but there's so many variables that could affect it. I'd rather budget commit to the 13
I
and
move
work
that
with
we
the county.
approve the unified budget as it is on the tourist development tax on the board.
The 13,325,000.
That's what's on it.
Yep. So there's a motion from Mr. Reeves. Mary, did you just,
second.
Mary just
I did, I
seconded?
seconded. Yes.
Is this for discussion or for vote?
It's sort of both.
Hey,
I
just
mean, we can discuss it.
2 seconds.
We can have discussion first.
Yeah, real quick, before I commit to this vote,
Yep.
I will say that I do find it concerning year after year, Darren or his predecessor prior had the same kind of problem. And so that's kind of been, I don't know if that's a function with us or it's a function with them, but they have had kind of this lag time since I've been on this board of a couple of months to need funding prior to moving forward. So I don't know if that's, and I don't think it's something we can fix at a workshop, especially before graduation of middle school. But I do think that it's something that we come back and talk about at some point. Because Darren's going to come back for a supplemental. So and that's all I want to say. Now you got my commitment on the vote at 13.
Obviously, there's a delta there, and Darren, I hear your concerns, but I'd like to hear from Stefan on this too, because obviously there's a method to the madness. So would you step to the podium, Stefan? Let me ask you. I got to make it awkward a little bit.
Yeah, no, good.
And that's what I'm here for. That's what I do. Stefan, so why is there a delta between what this board apparently wants and what you have written there?
So, so basically, to Darren's point, he's basically saying, hey, this was my full allocation in fiscal year '24. Instead of waiting for the supplement to happen later, he would like it, or Visit Pensacola Unified would like it on the front end. So, and then to the chairman's point, he's basically taking the growth in TDT and applying it to the current year's amount to get the revised amount. So what I would say is we could If we still, it really is the council's choice. However, you could always amend your fund balance and reserve policy as it basically creates an amount of money to supplement Visit Pensacola next year by, this overage. You could say, so let's say he got another 1.3, for instance, next year. You could reduce that by the overage of this amount, or whatever the wish of the council is. You certainly can do it that way.
And if for some reason the bottom fell out of the economy and the money didn't come through, we would, the county and the TDC would amend this, and we would, we're not locked in. It's just a budgetary
Correct.
number.
Correct.
Okay. I have no issue supporting it.
Supporting this 13? Yeah. So,
Yes, sir.
yeah, thank you. I just want to address the concern that Darren was having about not getting the funds until April, those supplemental funds. So the county has to go through their budget, their auditing process. And so the books aren't closed, and those funds aren't available until after that process is done. It's generally done around end of January, I think.
Correct, end of January, and then we have to get before a TDC meeting to get that approved, and then I can get it to my board. That is our process.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we can do for this additional funding that Visit Pensacola is asking, the unified budget is asking for, is we can schedule a special meeting or another meeting of the TDC in advance of like a February Board of County Commission meeting so that we can help facilitate that to move that process along.
I like that.
My concern would be allocating it now and then something happens and we don't collect that additional funding.
Right.
And so then we have to start adjusting those reserve funds and stuff. I'd rather just budget what we know we're going to project and then worry about that additional funding later. So we have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
So the difference between the 14.3 that Darren or unified budget needed versus the 13.3 that we have, how does that affect each one of the three organizations in the unified budget? Is it all just to one, or is it equal? Is it how's?
It's equal. The three agencies in the unified budget have a MOU where they each have a % of what goes to the unified budget. It used to be a different number than it is now. Hold on, I'll tell you what it is. ACE receives 14.75%. Pensacola Sports receives 11%, and Visit Pensacola receives 74.25% of whatever appropriation goes to the unified budget. So as it increases, they share in the success. As it decreases, they share in the loss. So the difference between those is still spread out based on those percentages.
Right. So my concern, I know like Visit Pensacola is year round versus like ACE, most of Fufu Fest or ACE is in November. How does that affect them if they don't have $140,000?
So ACE has three different programs. They have one that is a general operating grant program for the performing organizations. They have the Fufu Festival in November, and then after Fufu Fest is over, starting in December through May, they do the Vacation Artfully campaign. That is an advertising campaign for arts and cultural tourism. So it's not just these events and for the 12 days in November. It is all of the things going on in the spring through May. And then around May is when they do the general operating grant program.
Right.
So they really do operate year round.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? No? All right. So by a show of hands, who supports moving this forward to our next meeting?
I
Mary-
do.
Mary, you do too?
I do.
Tish, I'm sorry, you do too? Okay, so we have everyone's in support of that. Great, thank you. So the last section that is up there is the BOCC County Administration. We have added the $50,000 for the Perdido beautification, but there is The annual appropriation we've done for the Bay Center is 1.5 million, the 125 for beach mowing at Pensacola Beach. Marine Resources has requested $281,209 this year, which is a almost $100,000 increase over last year. The county admin is whatever I guess it's going to be. Last year we approved 350. I think she's on track this year to retain about, I don't know how much. Stefan, do you know? The actual cost?
It's
Less than
usually going to
3%.
be in the ballpark. Again, as it grows, it doesn't grow without somebody reaching out and collecting this stuff, right? So you've got more units, you've got more Airbnbs, you've got more things. It's more work. It's more effort. So, but it's going to be somewhere in that $500,000 to $600,000 range, respectively. That's really where you're going to end up. So certainly I can budget the 350 as proposed, but ultimately whatever that actual cost is what we will have to pay for out of the TDT funds.
What is the 40% figure equal based on what you're projecting?
So 3% of the 20 million.
$615,000.
So, but that is without the 5% statutory holdback or the 5th cent reserve.
Correct. That is the 3% off of the gross revenue. Now, again, that is a budget placeholder, if you will. The clerk will prepare the necessary documentation to support what the actual cost of administration is, which is up to 3%. I budget 3% to make sure that it's covered. It just means I'll have to pull it out of reserves to cover the difference, should it be more than 350.
I did. We approved that last year, and well, we budgeted 350 last year, but that's not what she's retaining this year. She's retaining whatever she says it costs, without exceeding the 3%.
Correct.
So she's never put in a request for the funding. Well, so we set policy and procedures that the county adopted. And one of those policies said that each fiscal year, the clerk of the circuit court will provide the BCC and the TDC with a cost analysis of the actual administrative costs incurred for the preceding year to document that the costs retained do not exceed 3% of the tax collected. But I've never been provided a cost analysis.
Was that always the case, or did the tax collector's office collect that at one time for Escambia County? And
I think
Can we
going
shop
back
it now?
decades,
okay.
we can. I mean, the statute actually says that the Department of Revenue, all the funding, the tax collected is remitted to the Department of Revenue, but the county may choose to collect it locally. And so 40 years ago, I think Escambia County decided to collect it locally. For some reason, it went to the clerk versus the tax collector's office.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's the way it is in every county in the state of Florida.
No, I think every other county goes through the tax collector
Oh, really?
or the Department of Revenue.
Oh, okay.
And so I will tell you, if the Department of Revenue does it, they take the full 3%.
They take the full 3%.
They take all of the
Yep.
3%.
Okay.
Yep. And the clerk still writes checks.
When has it ever been less than the 3%?
I would say consistently it has been less than the 3%. The budget just makes sure that we have the funds in the proper place so that the clerk can do their journal entries, adjusting the funds based on the actual cost. And of course, it is, because it's a budget, it's what we estimate it to be. By the end of the year, the actual cost of administration is reconciled, and then that is ultimately what the clerk will book on the financials.
So what you're really saying, though, is it doesn't matter what we do, you're gonna budget 3%.
I can budget it however the council prefers. From my perspective, I like to budget it at the 3% just so I have the funding in the right place because I know it's going to be somewhere in the ballpark.
So the clerk sent us all an email the other day with a spreadsheet tracking the administration costs. And she shows for fiscal year '23 that the actual percent was about 2.3% of the collection. And fiscal year 2022 was 2.1%. 21 was 1.7. In 2020, she collected 3%. That was the year of COVID when collections weren't near where they were, half of where they had been. So anyway, I don't think it really matters what number we put in there. The clerk's going to use what she says it takes to collect, not to exceed 3%.
Well,
So we can just plug a
But-
number
but-
and go.
so what was the purpose of the Attorney General's opinion, and what was the purpose of the county commission setting forth a policy if we don't get it?
You're preaching to the choir, sir.
Well,
So I propose we do the 350. Plug that number in and just go. That's what we did last year, and it seemed to get us through this process at least. The clerk's taking
well,
more.
I just don't understand why if we budgeted 350 and if it's really 600, that he goes into reserves.
I have to cover the actual cost.
I know you do, but I
I do.
mean, why do you have to do it out of reserves?
Because basically, as this council is going through this budget, you're saying these are all the items we're going to budget for. Everything else will ultimately be in reserves. Everything else is programmed accordingly.
So can the county actually take funding from other revenue sources to cover, if we budget 350, hold 350 coming out of TDT and find other general revenue, ad valorem tax collections or something to pay for whatever additionally it costs the clerk?
No, that is not what the statute says.
Which statute? Because it just says
The-
she can't exceed.
Well, exactly. So she's only charging the cost of administration. That is her actual cost, up to 3%.
Okay,
No one is paying for anything beyond that,
right,
or certainly not out of the TDT.
right. And do you have the records of what the actual costs are, like a breakdown, an analysis of who's doing what function and their rate of pay and how many hours per week they're working to get an aggregated $600,000?
So basically, what she has provided to the council members is a breakdown by their internal divisions that perform the task of collecting the TDT. Now, as far as granular detail ultimately supporting that, no, I have not been provided that information. However, what I have been provided has been shared with the council.
Is there a motion on the floor?
There is not, but we would accept one.
I move that we approve the unified,
We did that.
I'm sorry, the administrative, county administration, and are we okay with $100,000 with the Marine Services, and they haven't even?
I called Tim Day and I asked him, so we had this issue in the past where what we requested the Auditor General to look at all the expenditures under that program, and they determined that some of them may not have the legislative determination that they were authorized under the statute for tourism development. Last year, Tim came and presented to us at our budget workshop, reducing the amount of their requests, saying these are arguably tourism development expenditures. So I called him and asked him, is this increase, are all these dollars tourism development? And he said, yes. I don't have any documentation. I don't know if that was actually sent out.
Well, I mean, if you didn't have a graduation, I would move that we reduce them back to last year's amount and increase the clerk to $500,000. That way we'd have plenty of excitement at the next meeting.
Well, the clerk's going to take what she takes.
The clerk's gonna think, what?
The clerk is going to take what she takes to,
I
for
know,
the
but I
cost of the
just
program.
don't, what he's saying is we're short-sighted,
Yeah.
150 to 250,000, so I don't want to be short-sighted, especially if it doesn't count tonight.
But we're going to have to approve this at our next meeting.
Hey,
Is that in the
guys,
form of a motion?
huh?
Was that in the form of a motion?
Well, I'm seeing if I got any support at the other end of the table.
I don't know if I can support this quite yet, Mr. Reeves, but we're getting there. We are getting there.
Are you saying?
My
Hey, you
motion
need-
would be,
Shirley
if
needs to
it
turn
was
on the mic.
totally up to me, I would put the Marine budget back to its last year's budgeted amount. And I would increase
$100,000 is a huge difference. I
the
don't know.
collection to 500,000.
I-
Just so, I like the sound of him taking it out of current funds instead of reserves.
I will agree with that. Yeah, I can
So-
get down there.
Do you want to just round it to, for marine resources, to $185,000?
Yes. I want to do anything that helps you.
Doesn't help me.
So we're gonna do 185 for marine resources and 600? 500 for county.
For admin.
We gotta get a second.
So was that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
So we have a motion from Mr. Reeves. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Commissioner Burgash. Is there any further discussion?
Is either one of them gonna do a Pelican drop? I'm sorry. Let's go. Move the motion.
I think the Pelican drop's in there,
Okay.
and it's in the part we already approved, isn't it?
Fair enough,
Yeah,
fair enough.
he's asking if they would actually
Oh, okay.
do the
Either one.
project.
Either one of them, yeah.
I don't think,
Look at
well,
it,
Pelicans fit into marine resources, don't they?
look at it, the most increase we made is $50,000 for the county commissioner who votes on this budget. And we're going to give Marine another 100? It doesn't make sense with me and without some explanation.
Right.
By way of an explanation, I may be able to lend some insight. Like I mentioned earlier, for the first time in history, we're going to have lifeguards protecting the tourists who come to Perdido Key to our free beach access. That comes at a significant cost. Now, I don't know if that's in the same, it might be, I don't know how it all gets worked together, but I mean, that's going to create some county costs, right? So maybe that's part of, perhaps that's part of it, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's a separate.
So public safety cannot be funded with tourist development tax, so that
What
would-
about the equipment, though? We had to buy towers and things like that. I mean, what about their equipment?
So I believe that is coming out of local
Local
option sales
Okay,
tax.
all right, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Is there- Thank you.
Thank you.
He's always trying to grab this money. All right, any other comments or discussion?
Motion and second.
If not, let's show, by show of hands, who supports moving this proposal forward. Mary?
I do, David,
All
I
right.
do.
All right, so we have everyone in support of that. I don't think there's anything else. The rest of it's the income, the revenue side. Is there anything else you need from us, Stefan, for today's meeting? All right, so what I will do is make these adjustments on my spreadsheet. I will get them to Danielle, and we will present it at our next meeting, and we can vote on it to make the recommendation to the county commission.
Now, who sets Danielle's salary?
Yeah, can
The
we?
clerk.
I think
No,
we
I
ought
don't
to
know.
make a
Marine resources.
recommendation that she gets right.
Do you like to give it a right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a motion on the floor.
That much money.
Is that a motion? All right, any other,
Real quick, before we wrap it up real quick, Danny was trying to get our attention when we were talking earlier, and I guess we overlooked him. He was trying to say something.
come on up.
Really quick, because I don't want you to tell your mother I was the reason you were late to graduation.
It's my wife that I'm worried about on this one.
I'm worried about your mother. For Mardi Gras last year, we hired Down St. Germain and expanded what they were going to study. So they don't do an economic study, they survey events. And I guess for Flo Rida, we can defend that. Michael's still here, but I think what we did is we sold a lot of tickets to people out of town, and we had to give away a lot of tickets locally to get people to come locally. Down St. Germain, who does Darren's stuff, and they did it for us. We met them through the visit grants. So, and so that's how we got to know them. So we hired them with your money, and they did a study. So this past year on the events they studied, Mardi Gras brought in 55,400 out-of-town visitors and accounted for 9,900 hotel nights in this past season. I think it's great. Those are great numbers and a great return on your investment generally. Long story short, I think what Darren said is absolutely true in the spirit of the beach and downtown and Perdido Key are thriving. Everything else isn't. You can market those in other places talking about their greatness. We're totally event-driven, Mardi Gras is. And when you say Mardi Gras, you mean events. Granted, New Orleans is maybe the anomaly in that. You could go any time in the 6 or 8 weeks. In the spirit of how the event folks all work together, Senator Broxton got us all involved in Navy Days. Most of the people in here were involved in that. Thank you very much for supporting that, even though it was a rain out, but it was a tremendous amount of work. We have a report coming back to you for Mardi Gras. We were slowed down by that a little bit, but we'll get there on how last year's grant did. I think you'll find it was very successful. We want to continue, and also this coming Mardi Gras season is longer because Easter is farther out. Mardi Gras backs up. So the Fat Tuesday of this coming year's Mardi Gras is the first day of the SBC basketball tournament, and we've opened up to try to work together to bring SBC people here a day or two earlier and enjoy our community. So that's a part of next year's plan for Mardi Gras, and just in the spirit of how we all work together. So I don't want to keep you, David, or Mr. Chairman, from your graduation, but kind of it.
All right, thank you, Danny. Thank you.
Just for the record, I like the events, Danny, and Mardi Gras is fun. I just want to make sure we market it enough so people that are out of town know we have it here. Thank you.
You were going to move that we adjourn? Motion accepted. We adjourn. Thank you, everybody.